This pattern, the doctor explained, would typically indicate an epileptic seizure. He let that sink in. That doesn't tell us exactly what caused the episode, but it does help narrow the possibilities. The doctor leaned back. I'd like to continue evaluating why your brain remains in such a heightened state when you're alone, because chronic hyperarousal and severe insomnia can significantly affect memory, concentration, emotional regulation, and overall health. He looked between Noah and Tate. I don't think we have all the answers yet. But I do think we've learned something important. When you're by yourself, your brain appears to remain on high alert instead of allowing you to rest. He closed the folder. That is something we should take seriously, and it's something I'd like to investigate further. The doctor cleared his throat and looked over his notes before addressing both of them. I'd like to gather a little more information before drawing conclusions. He turned to Tate. You mentioned that your usual sleeping arrangement is different from what we observed last night. Tate nodded. I don't normally sleep alone. The doctor made a note. In that case, I'd like to compare your typical sleeping environment with what we recorded here. He looked between Tate and Noah. If you're both comfortable with it, I'd like to record another night of physiological data under conditions that more closely resemble your normal routine. Noah listened quietly. The goal isn't to evaluate your relationship, the doctor clarified. It's to understand whether your sleeping environment has a measurable effect on your ability to fall asleep, remain asleep, and regulate your nervous system. He turned another page in the chart. We would compare tonight's recordings with last night's data. We'd examine differences in sleep onset, sleep continuity, awakenings, heart rate, breathing, muscle activity, and brainwave patterns. The doctor continued. If there is a significant difference, it would suggest that your sleep difficulties are strongly influenced by your sleeping conditions. If there isn't, then we'd continue looking for other explanations. He smiled reassuringly. Depending on what we find, I may also recommend collecting additional nights of data under different, but consistent, sleeping arrangements. Sleep can vary considerably from one night to another, so multiple recordings often provide a clearer picture than a single study. The doctor closed the chart. At this point, what I can say with confidence is that your sleep patterns are quite unusual. He looked directly at Tate. Last night, your nervous system remained in a persistently heightened state, and you obtained very little restorative sleep. His tone remained calm and clinical. Our next step is to determine what conditions allow your brain and body to achieve normal sleep, if any, and whether those differences are reflected in the physiological recordings. He offered a reassuring smile. The more we understand what your normal pattern looks like, the better we'll be able to determine whether we're dealing with a sleep disorder, an anxiety-related sleep disturbance, or another condition that affects how you sleep. That evening, Tate agreed to the second overnight study. The technicians reattached the monitoring equipment, carefully placing each sensor and confirming the signals on their monitors. This time, Noah was invited into the room once everything was ready. Noah climbed into the hospital bed beside Tate. Almost immediately, Tate settled into the position Noah knew so well. He lay on top of Noah, resting his head against Noah's bare chest as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Noah couldn't help feeling self-conscious. He imagined the sleep technicians behind the observation window trying very hard to remain professional while documenting what had to be one of the most unusual sleeping arrangements they had ever observed. Noah felt his face grow warm. Tate, meanwhile, didn't seem to notice anyone else existed. Within 20 minutes of Noah joining him, Tate's breathing slowed. His body relaxed completely. He fell asleep. For the next 8 hours, he barely moved. The tossing and turning from the previous night disappeared. There were no repeated startle responses. No restless scanning of the room. No trembling beneath the blankets. No frightened whispers. No crying. Just slow, even breathing. Noah eventually drifted off himself. When he opened his eyes, sunlight was filtering through the blinds. He glanced at the clock. Just after 9. Tate was still asleep. His face was buried against Noah's chest. A small trail of drool had soaked into Noah's skin. Noah smiled despite himself. Classy, he whispered under his breath. A gentle knock came at the door before it opened. One of the sleep technicians stepped inside with a friendly smile. Rise and shine. Tate slowly opened both eyes. He blinked at the technician for a few seconds, clearly not yet awake. Then he yawned so widely his eyes watered before burying his face back against Noah for another moment. The technician chuckled politely. When you're both ready, they said, why don't you have some breakfast? The technician held up the chart. And afterward, we'll go over the results together. Noah looked at Tate, who still looked perfectly content exactly where he was. Whatever the monitors had recorded overnight, one thing was already obvious. The difference between sleeping alone and sleeping this way had been dramatic. After breakfast at the Sleep Center cafe, Tate and Noah followed the sleep physician into his office. Tate had eaten a bagel and a yogurt. Noah had settled for a banana and an omelet. The physician sat down with two folders, one from each night of testing. He placed them side by side on the desk. So, he began, we've now had an opportunity to compare the first and second nights. He looked at Tate. The difference is quite remarkable. He opened the first folder. On the first night you were unable to achieve sustained sleep. You remained awake for nearly the entire study and the little sleep you did obtain was fragmented and non-restorative. He moved to the second folder. On the second night, under your usual sleeping conditions, you slept approximately 8 hours. He paused. And not just 8 hours. You progressed through normal sleep stages, including prolonged periods of deep sleep and REM sleep, with far fewer awakenings. The doctor leaned back. The contrast between the two nights is striking. He smiled reassuringly. I don't mean alarming in the sense that you've developed something dangerous overnight. I mean it's an unusually large difference. He glanced down at the graphs once more. In 20 years of practicing sleep medicine, I can't recall seeing such a dramatic improvement from changing only one aspect of a patient's sleeping environment. He looked toward Noah. You seem to have a profoundly calming effect on Tate. The room grew quiet. The doctor asked, has he always been like this around you? Noah nodded. Ever since we were about 4 years old. The physician smiled thoughtfully. That explains quite a bit. He folded his hands. When children experience chronic sleep difficulties, anxiety around sleep, or other disturbances early in life, it's not uncommon for them to develop strong associations with a person or environment in which they consistently feel safe. He looked at Tate. In your case, Noah appears to have become that source of safety. The physician was careful to distinguish what the study showed from what it did not. I can't say from these 2 nights alone why that association developed, but the physiological difference is very clear. He tapped the second night's recordings. When Noah was present, your body relaxed enough to enter and maintain normal sleep. He tapped the first nights. When he wasn't, your nervous system remained in a state of heightened arousal. He continued. My concern isn't that you sleep well with Noah. My concern is that, based on these results, you appear to have great difficulty regulating your sleep without that sense of safety. He turned to Tate. When you were alone, your body stayed alert. You struggled to fall asleep. You had repeated awakenings and signs of hyperarousal. When Noah joined you, those signs decreased dramatically. The physician paused. That tells me your brain can sleep normally. The challenge is that, at least under the conditions we tested, it seems to rely on a very specific feeling of security to do so. He closed the folders. I'd recommend continuing to evaluate this with both a sleep specialist and, if you're willing, a psychologist who works with sleep-related anxiety and conditioned sleep behaviors. He smiled gently. The encouraging news is that your brain clearly knows how to sleep. Our job now is to help you learn how to achieve that same level of rest even when Noah isn't physically present. He looked at both of them. That's a healthier long-term goal than simply concluding you can only sleep when he's nearby. On the third night, the sleep center decided to try another comparison. This time, Tate would attempt to sleep alone again. The sleep physician was joined by a psychologist who specialized in sleep medicine and had extensive training in how psychological and emotional factors could affect the brain's ability to rest. They wanted to understand the pattern. Not just what happened when Noah was present, but what happened when Tate had to regulate himself without that familiar sense of safety. Noah sat in the observation room, watching the monitors. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the equipment. Several wires were attached to different areas of Tate's head and body, each measuring different aspects of his sleep. Brain activity, eye movement, muscle activity, heart rate, breathing. The psychologist studied the screens carefully. At first Tate lay still. But he didn't relax. Noah could see it immediately. Even through the monitors, there was a tension in the way Tate held himself. His eyes moved beneath his eyelids. His body shifted slightly. Then one of the monitors changed. Several of the channels connected to different regions of Tate's brain began showing increased activity. The psychologist leaned forward. "Look at that." The sleep physician moved closer to the screen. The lines changed as different areas of activity appeared across the recording. Noah watched silently. "What does that mean?" he asked. The psychologist didn't answer immediately. She continued observing. "It means his brain is not entering a quiet, resting state." She pointed to the recordings. "When someone is preparing for sleep, we expect activity to gradually decrease and organize into predictable patterns." She glanced back at Tate's data. "Instead, we're seeing heightened activity in multiple areas." Noah frowned. "Like he's awake." "More than awake," she said carefully. "He's alert." The doctor watched the screen. It's as though his brain is continuing to monitor the environment instead of allowing itself to disengage. Noah looked through the glass at Tate. The psychologist continued taking notes. "We need to be careful not to interpret one night as a diagnosis, but this pattern is consistent with what we saw during the first study." The monitors continued recording. Tate's brain activity remained irregular. The same person who had slept peacefully for 8 hours with Noah beside him was now struggling to reach the same state alone. The sleep physician looked at the data, then at Noah. "This is exactly why we wanted the comparison." Noah didn't answer. He was watching the screens. Watching the wires measure, something he had known instinctively for years. When Tate felt safe, he could rest. When he didn't, his entire system seemed to stay on guard. The fourth night, the sleep center continued the observation. This time, Tate would again attempt to sleep alone. The team wanted more data. The sleep physician was present, along with Dr. Whitman, a specialist in psychotherapy and CPT-related responses and unusual sleep disorders. She had spent years studying how emotional states could affect the nervous system, especially during attempts to rest. Noah watched from the observation room. At first, Tate simply lay there. The room was dark, quiet, safe by most standards. But Tate didn't experience it that way. He stayed underneath the duvet, curled tightly into himself. The monitors showed that his body was not settling. His breathing remained uneven. His muscles stayed tense. Every small sound seemed to pull him back into alertness. Noah watched Tate shift again and again. Minutes became hours. The psychologist made notes. "He hasn't entered a true sleep state," Dr. Whitman quietly said. The sleep technician continued monitoring. "He's maintaining awareness." Around 2:30 in the morning, Noah noticed something that made his chest tight. Tate had pulled the duvet nearly over his entire body. Only part of his face was visible. Then, almost absent-mindedly, Tate brought his thumb to his mouth. Noah froze. He looked at the monitors, then back at Tate. Dr. Whitman noticed as well. She didn't react with judgment. She simply wrote something down. "Interesting," she murmured. The sleep physician glanced over. "What are you thinking?" "I'm not making conclusions," Dr. Whitman replied. "I'm documenting a self-soothing behavior." She watched Tate carefully. It may indicate that when he becomes overwhelmed, he returns to a behavior associated with comfort and safety. Noah remained silent behind the glass. Because he had known Tate for decades. And somehow, seeing it on a monitor made it feel different. Later in the night, Tate became more restless. He shifted closer to the edge of the bed. Then suddenly, he rolled too far and fell onto the floor. The technicians immediately watched for injury. Tate sat there for a moment confused. Then instead of climbing back into bed, he crawled underneath it. Noah stood up instinctively. Tate. The word escaped before he realized he had said it aloud. But Tate couldn't hear him. Underneath the bed, Tate curled up. Not sleeping. Not resting. Just hiding. Dr. Whitman continued observing. He isn't seeking sleep right now, she said quietly. He's seeking a feeling of safety. The night continued. Tate never fell asleep. Not once. Noah watched the entire evening unfold, the restless movements, the fear, the inability to relax, the way Tate seemed unable to calm his own body without someone else nearby. When morning approached, the monitors showed what the team had already suspected. Tate's brain and body were capable of deep, restorative sleep. But only under certain conditions. The question they still had to answer was why. And Noah couldn't stop thinking about the simplest explanation. For years, Tate had always reached for him when he was afraid. Maybe everyone else had been studying the sleep problem. But Noah had been living with the answer. For 2 weeks, the sleep center continued observing Tate. The first week focused entirely on Tate sleeping alone. The second week focused on Tate sleeping in his usual environment, with Noah present. The professionals wanted as much objective information as possible. During the nights alone, the pattern remained consistent. Tate struggled. He rarely achieved meaningful sleep. His body remained tense. He startled easily. He moved constantly. He made small, distressed sounds throughout the night, quiet moans, frustrated groans, and the sound of his teeth chattering when his body became overwhelmed. But there was one word that appeared again and again. Noe. The technicians noticed it. The psychologists noticed it. The physicians noticed it. Over the course of the observation period, Tate said it hundreds of times. Sometimes it was barely a whisper. Sometimes it sounded like a plea. Sometimes it came out while he was awake and frightened. Sometimes it came out while he was drifting between sleep and wakefulness. Dr. Whitman documented every occurrence. She didn't treat the word as a simple habit. She treated it as information. Then came the nights when Noah joined him. The first night of that observation, Dr. Whitman watched from the monitoring room. She expected improvement. She did not expect what happened next. Tate entered the room, looked at the bed, and immediately moved toward Noah. Within moments, he climbed on top of him, settling into the position that seemed completely natural to him. Dr. Whitman froze. She looked at the monitor. Then back at Tate. Then back at the data. He's already changing, she said quietly. The sleep technician watched the readings shift. Within minutes, Tate's body began to relax. His breathing slowed. His muscle tension decreased. The constant alertness disappeared. The restless movement stopped. And then Tate fell asleep. Not a light, restless sleep. Real sleep. Deep sleep. The kind of sleep the team had been trying to observe all week. Dr. Whitman continued watching the monitors. I have to admit, she said softly, I've never seen a transition this dramatic. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The man who had spent nights hiding under blankets and crawling beneath beds was now sleeping peacefully. And then Noah noticed something unusual. Tate was smiling. Not a brief movement. Not a random facial twitch. A genuine relaxed expression. He looked comfortable. Safe. Dr. Whitman studied the recordings. This isn't about whether the arrangement is typical or unusual, she said carefully. The important thing is that his nervous system is responding very differently when he feels secure. Noah looked through the glass at Tate. For years, people had asked Noah why Tate needed him so much. Why he reached for him. Why he always came back. Now the sleep study was showing something no conversation ever had. Tate's body was revealing what Tate himself struggled to explain. When he felt alone, he fought the world. When he felt safe, he finally rested. Dr. Whitman sat across from Tate, while Noah remained quietly in the corner of the office. The room was calm. Unlike the monitoring room, there were no machines, no wires, and no screens displaying his sleep patterns. Just the three of them. Dr. Whitman placed the collected reports on the table. Tate, I want to explain what we've observed over the last 2 weeks. Tate nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable. We spent 1 week observing your sleep without Noah present and 1 week observing your sleep with Noah present. She paused, making sure he was listening. The difference was significant. Tate looked down. When you were sleeping alone, your body remained in a state of heightened alertness. You struggled to fall asleep, and when you did begin to drift off, your sleep was frequently interrupted. She glanced at the notes. You showed signs of hyperarousal, sleep fragmentation, and difficulty regulating yourself into a resting state. Tate swallowed. Dr. Whitman continued. During those nights, you displayed several behaviors that appeared to be attempts to create a sense of safety. She didn't sound judgmental. You pulled the blankets over yourself, you hid underneath the bed, you engaged in self-soothing behaviors, you repeatedly called out for Noah. Tate looked up briefly. Noe. Dr. Whitman nodded. Yes. She looked at her notes. You said his name repeatedly throughout the night. A quiet silence filled the room. But when Noah was present, the results changed dramatically. She turned one of the pages around. Your brain activity became calmer, your heart rate stabilized, your body was able to transition into sustained sleep. She looked at Tate carefully. You went from barely sleeping to sleeping for approximately 8 hours. Tate didn't say anything. You also entered normal sleep cycles, including deep sleep and REM sleep. Dr. Whitman leaned back slightly. The important thing I want you to understand is that this does not mean there is something wrong with you. She emphasized the words. It means your nervous system has formed a very strong association between Noah and safety. Tate glanced toward Noah. Noah stayed quiet. Dr. Whitman continued. That association appears to have developed over a very long period of time. Since childhood, Noah said softly. She nodded. Exactly. She looked back at Tate. When someone experiences comfort, stability, and security from another person over many years, the brain can begin to associate that person with the ability to relax. She tapped the report. Your body appears to have learned, when Noah is here, I am safe enough to sleep. Tate looked uncomfortable. So what does that mean? Dr. Whitman considered her answer. It means we need to understand why your brain has difficulty creating that same sense of safety independently. She glanced at Noah. And it also means we need to be thoughtful about how much responsibility is placed on Noah. Noah looked up. Dr. Whitman continued. Noah can be an important support in your life. But the long-term goal is not for one person to be the only thing that allows another person to regulate. Tate was silent. The doctor softened her voice. The question we need to explore is not, why can Tate only sleep with Noah? It's, why does Tate's nervous system believe it can only be safe when Noah is there? The room went quiet. And for the first time, Tate didn't argue. He just listened. Dr. Whitman looked down at the notes in front of her before continuing. Tate, there is one pattern that became very clear during this observation period. Tate looked up. What patterns? She chose her words carefully. What we're seeing appears consistent with what we would describe as a strong sleep dependency. Tate frowned. Dependency. Yes, Dr. Whitman said, not in the sense that you're weak or incapable, that's not what I'm saying. She pointed to the sleep reports. I'm referring to the way your brain and nervous system have learned to rely on a specific condition in order to reach a relaxed state. She glanced briefly toward Noah. In your case, that condition appears to be Noah. The room became quiet. Noah is not just someone you happen to sleep better beside, she continued. Your recording suggests that his presence functions as a powerful emotional and physical regulator for you. Tate looked away. Dr. Whitman continued. When you were alone, your body behaved as though it needed to remain alert. You couldn't settle, you couldn't maintain sleep. Your brain continued scanning for safety. She tapped the second set of results. When Noah was present, those patterns changed almost immediately. Your nervous system calmed. Your sleep cycles normalized. Your body allowed itself to rest. She paused. So yes, based on what we've observed, Noah appears to have become an emotional and physical anchor for you. Tate was quiet. Anchor. Someone your brain associates with safety, comfort, and regulation. Dr. Whitman leaned forward slightly. The important thing is understanding that this likely developed over many years. This is not something that appeared overnight. Noah glanced at Tate. Dr. Whitman continued. You've known each other since childhood. You've had a consistent bond for most of your life. At some point, your brain appears to have learned that being near Noah means you can let your guard down. Tate swallowed. So what's wrong with that? Dr. Whitman shook her head gently. Having someone who comforts you is not wrong. Healthy relationships include support. The concern is when your body cannot access calm, safety, or rest without that person physically present. She looked at Tate. Right now, your nervous system seems to have outsourced a significant amount of its regulation to Noah. Tate was silent. And that creates a problem, she continued. Because Noah is a person, he has his own needs, his own emotions, and his own life. She glanced toward Noah. Being important to someone can be meaningful. But being solely responsible for someone's ability to feel safe is a very heavy burden. The word stayed in the room. Dr. Whitman closed the folder. The goal is not to take Noah away from you. It's to help you build the ability to feel safe even when Noah isn't immediately beside you. She looked back at Tate. Because the results tell us something very important. A pause. Your brain is capable of sleeping. The challenge is teaching it that safety exists in more than one place. Dr. Whitman looked over her notes before speaking. I would recommend starting with cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, commonly called CBTI. Tate looked at her. What is that? Dr. Whitman turned the report toward him. CBTI is a structured therapy specifically designed to treat sleep problems. It isn't just general talk therapy. It focuses on changing the thoughts, behaviors, and patterns that keep the brain from entering a healthy sleep state. She continued. Right now, based on what we've observed, your brain has developed a very strong association. Noah equals safety and safety equals sleep. Tate glanced toward Noah. Dr. Whitman nodded. That association makes sense given your history together. But the problem is that your brain has learned that safety exists only in one place and with one person. She pointed to the sleep recordings. When Noah was present, your body relaxed. When he wasn't, your brain went into a state of alertness. CBTI would help teach your brain a different message. That you are capable of feeling safe enough to sleep even when Noah is not physically beside you. Tate looked uncertain. How? Dr. Whitman explained. There are several parts. First, we would work on sleep conditioning. Right now, your brain has conditioned itself to expect Noah's presence before it allows sleep. We would gradually create new associations between your bedroom, your bed, and a calm sleep state. She continued. Second, we would address the thoughts that appear when you are alone at night. The fear, the expectation that something is wrong, the feeling that you cannot handle being by yourself. Those thoughts can activate the body's stress response, which makes sleep even harder. Noah listened quietly. So I just tell myself I'm fine. Dr. Whitman shook her head. No, it's not about pretending. It's about learning to recognize the thoughts, understand where they come from, and develop healthier ways to respond to them. She continued. Third, we would use gradual exposure. Tate frowned. Exposure. Not forcing you into something overwhelming, she clarified. Small controlled steps. For example, learning to relax alone for short periods, then gradually increasing that time. The goal is for your nervous system to discover through experience that being alone is uncomfortable but not unsafe. She glanced at Noah. And this is where we have to be careful. Noah looked up. Because of me. Because of the role you play. Dr. Whitman nodded. You are clearly a source of comfort for Tate. That is not something we want to remove abruptly. She looked at Tate. But if Noah is the only way your body knows how to calm down, the dependency can become stronger. Tate looked down. So what does Noah do? Support you without becoming the only solution. She explained. For example, Noah can encourage you, reassure you, and participate in the process. but the goal is not for him to have to be physically present every single time you need to sleep. She paused. The healthier outcome is that Noah remains someone you love and trust while your brain also learns, I can be safe by myself. Noah nodded slowly. And if we don't work on it? Dr. Whitman answered honestly. The dependency may continue to grow. Your world may become smaller because avoiding separation feels easier than building confidence. She closed the folder. The encouraging part is that your sleep study showed something important. You are not incapable of sleeping. Your brain already knows how. Now we have to teach it that Noah is not the only doorway to feeling safe. Before they left, Dr. Whitman closed the folder and looked at Tate. Before you go, Tate, I would like to speak with you privately for a moment. Tate looked surprised. Noah immediately understood and nodded. Of course. He stepped out of the office and waited in the hallway. For 15 minutes he sat there quietly, wondering what they were discussing. Eventually the door opened. Tate walked out. Dr. Whitman stood behind him, holding a small business card between her fingers. Her expression was different than before. Not clinical. Not frustrated. Sad. She extended the card toward Tate. If you change your mind, this is someone you can call. Tate looked down at the card but didn't immediately take it. Dr. Whitman gently placed it in his hand. It is very important that you take this seriously. Tate looked away. Denial isn't going to help you get better. The words were gentle but firm. This isn't about blaming you, it isn't about saying something is wrong with you as a person. She paused. It's about recognizing that something is affecting your life, your sleep, and your relationships. Tate remained quiet. Dr. Whitman looked at him for a moment. You have a lot of strengths, Tate. But avoiding the problem will only allow the pattern to continue. She stepped back. It was nice meeting you both. Her eyes briefly moved toward Noah, then back to Tate. If you have any additional concerns, please feel free to reach back out to us. She smiled politely. Have a lovely day, gentlemen. Tate nodded. Thank you. As they walked away, Noah glanced back. Dr. Whitman was still standing there. She had a sad look on her face. Not because she disliked Tate. Not because she thought he was hopeless. But because she had spent hours watching someone who was clearly capable of feeling safe and loved, yet seemed terrified of understanding why. She slowly turned around, walked back into her office and closed the door. Noah looked at Tate. Neither of them spoke. But Noah couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Dr. Whitman had said privately had been more important than anything she had explained in the consultation room. Noah drove them home. Tate's license had been confiscated 2 weeks earlier, so Noah was the one behind the wheel. The entire drive, Tate was restless. He shifted in his seat. He stared out the window. Every few minutes, he muttered something under his breath. Finally, he broke the silence. Unbelievable. Noah glanced at him. What? Being treated like I'm a child. Tate scoffed. First the doctors, now her. He shook his head. Dr. Whitman doesn't know what she's talking about. Noah kept his eyes on the road. What did she talk to you about? Tate immediately looked away. His jaw tightened. For a moment, Noah thought he wasn't going to answer. Then Tate glared at him. His face twisted into a grimace. And then, almost like a child refusing to admit something bothered him, he pouted. Nothing. Noah raised an eyebrow. Tate. He crossed his arms. She's always trying to diagnose me. His voice became sharper. They just want to make money off people. Tate. Complete waste of time. No. Noah's voice was firm. Don't say that. Tate looked over. Why? Because they are trying to help you. Tate laughed bitterly. They can't help me. Noah was quiet. There is nothing wrong with me. The certainty in Tate's voice surprised him. I don't need a doctor to tell me what I already know. Noah tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He wanted to argue. He wanted to tell Tate about the nights he had watched him struggle. The fear. The confusion. The fact that Tate's own body had shown them something Tate refused to acknowledge. But Noah stopped himself. Because this wasn't just stubbornness. This was a wall. A familiar one. The same wall Tate built every time something got too close to something painful. When they pulled into the driveway, Tate immediately opened the door. Tate. But Tate was already out. He slammed the car door harder than necessary. Then he walked toward the house without looking back. Noah remained sitting there for a moment, watching him. Because the frustrating part was that Tate wasn't acting like someone who believed nothing was wrong. He was acting like someone terrified that there might be. Noah followed Tate inside. The front door had barely closed before Noah spoke. What did she say? Tate kept walking. Noah followed him into the living room. What did Dr. Whitman say? Tate stopped. Noah's voice softened, but he didn't back down. I have a right to know, Tate. Tate turned around. I'm taking care of you. The words hung between them. Not as an accusation. As a reminder. Tate's face tightened. Doctors are just pill peddlers. Noah frowned. Tate. No, they are. Tate's voice rose. They're always telling me I need therapy or that there's something wrong with me. He shook his head. There's always something. His frustration seemed to build with every word. First it's my sleep. Then it's my memory. Then it's my emotions. He threw his hands up. When does it stop? Noah watched him carefully. Because underneath the anger was something else. Fear. Fear of being labeled. Fear of being examined. Fear that someone was going to tell him he wasn't normal. Tate. No. Tate cut him off. I'm done. He turned toward the stairs. I'm going upstairs. Noah stood there. Tate, we need to talk about this. But Tate kept moving. Everyone can just fuck off. The words came out harshly. Then he started up the stairs. Noah didn't follow. He watched Tate disappear down the hallway. And he couldn't stop thinking about how often Tate treated help like an attack. How often he heard concern as criticism. The doctors weren't telling him he was broken. They were telling him something was happening, but Tate seemed determined to prove that nothing was. That night, Tate walked up to Noah's bedroom door and reached for the doorknob. It didn't turn. He frowned and rattled it once, then twice, realizing someone had installed a new lock. His expression darkened immediately. Oh, are we back to this again? He muttered, giving the knob another hard tug. Instead of locking the door, you could just talk to me if you want my attention. Receiving only silence, Tate's frustration mounted. You don't have to lock the door, every night is a battle with you. The black-haired, hazel-eyed toddler scowled at the uncooperative door as though it had personally insulted him. With an irritated huff, he yanked the knob one last time before planting a firm kick against the wood. I know you're in there, he shouted. Open the door. When no answer came, Tate folded his arms tightly across his chest, glaring at the door with the stubborn determination of someone who fully intended to outwait it. Every few seconds he would jiggle the handle again, as if expecting the lock to suddenly change its mind. You know, he grumbled to the silent room beyond, this is a really rude way to treat somebody. Another kick landed against the bottom of the door, more petulant than destructive. I'm not leaving. He leaned his forehead against the wood, sighing dramatically before giving the handle another hopeless twist. I just wanted to see you. For all his complaining, the tantrum had less to do with the locked door than with being shut out. To Tate, the barrier between him and Noah felt enormous, and his irritation masked a much simpler emotion. He hated feeling excluded. Open up, Noe, Tate called in a mischievous sing-song voice, rapping his knuckles against the bedroom door. You can't sleep knowing your very heavy black blanket isn't on you, you know you can't. Silence. You're keeping me out, which is a tedious waste of time in which we could be spending cuddling, or actually communicating. Nothing. Tate leaned closer to the door. Did my mother teach you how to do this just to annoy the fuck out of me? A quiet voice finally drifted through the wood. Go away, Tate. I will not. Another pause. I'm reached the end of my rope, Tate grumbled dramatically. Unlock the door or I'll lose my temper, and you know what happens when I lose my temper. He rested his forehead against the door. I start breaking things. A long silence followed before Noah answered softly. Then go break something that isn't my bedroom door. Tate frowned. That's not very supportive. I'm trying to sleep. No, you're trying to ignore me. I am ignoring you. See, communication, Tate said triumphantly. We're making progress. A tired sigh came from the other side. No, we're not. We are. You've spoken 4 whole sentences to me. Noah didn't answer. Tate waited a few seconds before knocking again. Come on, Noe. Silence. I miss you. Another long pause. You'll survive. I don't want to survive, I want cuddles. You'll still survive. Tate sighed as though he were the victim of a great injustice. You know, you're being very unreasonable. So are you. I know, Tate admitted. Now unlock the door. No. Tate stared at the doorknob for a moment before giving it another disappointed jiggle. I'll just stand here until you change your mind. You'll get tired. I'll sit. You'll get bored. I'll complain. I noticed. The hallway fell quiet again, Tate remaining stubbornly outside the locked bedroom while Noah remained just as stubbornly inside. You always have to be difficult, Tate seethed. He glared at the door for another second before throwing his hands into the air. Fine, be a cunt. He pointed accusingly at the unresponsive slab of wood. I'm going downstairs to get a screwdriver, and when I get back I'm going to have to perform a task that makes me very angry, but the end result will be the same. He jabbed a finger toward the lock. I'm not going to be excluded and I'm not going to be ignored, do you understand me? To punctuate his declaration, Tate kicked the door. For a heartbeat there was silence. Then from the other side, Noah burst into laughter. It started as a snort before dissolving into genuine, uncontrollable laughing. Tate blinked. What's so funny? Still laughing, Noah leaned against the door. Did you just say, I won't be ignored? Tate frowned. Yes. Noah laughed even harder. Oh my God. He tried to compose himself, failed, and started laughing again. Tate. What? Are you Alex Forrest? There was a brief silence as Tate searched his memory. Who's Alex Forrest? The obsessive woman from Fatal Attraction, Noah managed between laughs. She literally says, I won't be ignored. Another fit of laughter escaped him. I can't believe you just threatened me with one of the most famous psycho lines in movie history. Tate's expression remained perfectly serious. I've never seen it. I can tell. So is she right? Noah laughed so hard he had to brace himself against the wall. That is absolutely not the point. It sounds like she had a valid complaint. Oh, you are unbelievable. I'm still getting the screwdriver. I know you are, Noah said, still chuckling. That's the part that makes this conversation even more ridiculous. Tate gave the door one last indignant glare. You can laugh all you want, this lock is living on borrowed time. As Tate stomped down the hallway muttering to himself, Noah's laughter echoed after him, loud enough that Tate couldn't help feeling at least a little satisfied. Even if Noah had laughed at him instead of opening the door, at least he wasn't being ignored anymore. 45 minutes later, the bedroom door finally came free. Tate caught it before it toppled over, grunting as he lifted it off the hinges. He leaned the heavy door carefully against the hallway wall, dusted his hands together, and marched triumphantly into Noah's bedroom. His victorious expression vanished. The room was empty. The bed was untouched. The window stood wide open, its curtains fluttering gently in the night breeze. Tate stared at it for several long seconds. Then his eye twitched. Oh, very mature, he yelled toward the open window. His voice echoed out into the night. I spent 45 minutes taking the bloody hinges off this door and you escape on me. He marched to the window and leaned out as far as he safely could, scanning the yard below. Noah. Nothing. If you've gone to Susie's house one more time, I'm going to scream. He threw his arms into the air. Get back here. Still nothing. You avoidant little rascal, Tate shouted into the darkness, get back here. Only crickets answered him. Tate sighed dramatically and rested both hands on the windowsill. You know, he called out to the empty yard, this is exactly the sort of behavior that makes people remove doors from their hinges. Susie was in the middle of a girls' night with Bree and Anna. Empty snack bowls littered the coffee table, a movie was playing quietly in the background, and the three of them were halfway through a conversation when a firm knock sounded at the front door. Susie groaned. "If that's Tate," she said, throwing her head back dramatically, "I'm going to scream. Can't we ever have one girls' night without him?" She walked over and pulled the front door open. "What does Tate need?" She stopped mid-sentence. "Noah." Noah stood on the porch with his hands tucked into his hoodie pockets, looking equal parts amused and exasperated. "Oh, what are you doing here?" Susie asked. She smirked. "You're no girls." Noah chuckled. "Well, although," Susie continued with a grin, "you could always be the woman in your relationship with Tate." Noah rolled his eyes. "I'll pretend I didn't hear that." "Come in," Susie laughed, stepping aside. "Are you hiding again?" "Number yes." He walked inside, kicked off his shoes, and dropped onto the couch with an exhausted sigh. "Tate tried to take the door off the hinges in my bedroom." The room went completely silent. Then Bree blinked. "He what?" "He couldn't get the new lock open," Noah explained. "So he disappeared for 10 minutes, came back with a screwdriver and literally removed the door." Anna stared at him. "You're kidding." "I wish I were." Noah gestured vaguely toward the direction of his house. "I climbed out my bedroom window while he was busy." That earned a burst of laughter from all three women. Noah turned his attention to the other girls that were there and smiled. "Hey Bree, hey Anna, how's it going?" "We're fantastic," Bree said, shaking her head. "Apparently your evening has been far more entertaining than ours." Anna laughed. "I've heard of taking the door off its hinges as a figure of speech." "So had I," Noah replied. "Apparently Tate took it as an instruction manual." Susie was still laughing. "You are so lucky, Noah." He raised an eyebrow. "Lucky?" "Tate adores you," she said. "If he were breaking down my bedroom door, I'd feel so honored." Noah stared at her. "Susie." "What?" "Your standards for romance are deeply concerning." Bree snorted. "She's got a point, though." "No, she doesn't. He spent 45 minutes removing your bedroom door because he refused to accept being locked out." "Exactly." "That's not romantic," Noah protested. "That's unhinged." Anna couldn't resist a pun. "So was the door." The room erupted into laughter. Noah covered his face with one hand. "I walked right into that one." From somewhere outside, faintly carried on the evening air, Tate's voice echoed across the neighborhood. "Noah." The four of them froze. Another shout followed. "I know you're at Susie's." Susie slowly looked toward the front window. "He's learned to track you by sound now." Noah sighed. "I told you he wasn't going to give up." "And yet," Susie said with a grin, standing up from the couch, "I'm still not answering the door." "Your boyfriend's here," Bree laughed as another knock rattled the front door. "He's not my boyfriend," Noah said with a grimace. "Oh yeah," Bree smirked. "He's just the boy who sleeps nude on top of you every night." The room exploded with laughter. Noah buried his face in his hands. "I hate all of you." Anna was still chuckling. "If I tried to sell your friendship, relationship, whatever the fuck you two call yourselves, nobody would buy it." Bree nodded in agreement. "They'd read about it because it's entertaining." "But they wouldn't believe it," Anna finished. Another knock echoed through the house. "Tate," Susie muttered. The doorknob rattled. "Let me in, Susie," Tate called through the door. "He's hiding from me again, I just want to go to sleep." Susie folded her arms. "Well, that could be said about all of us." The girls laughed. Outside, Tate sighed dramatically. "You're all encouraging his avoidant behavior." Noah looked around the living room with growing desperation. "Says the most emotionally avoidant man in Los Angeles," Anna laughed. "Where can I hide?" Noah wanted an exit strategy. Bree pointed toward the hallway. "Guest room." Anna shook her head. "He'll look there first." "The bathroom," Noah suggested hopefully. "No," Susie said, "he'll absolutely check the bathroom." Another tug on the doorknob. "Susie," Tate pleaded, "I know he's in there, I can feel it." Bree snorted. "He can feel it." "He has no gator," Anna joked. Noah groaned. "I'm never living that one down, am I?" "Never," all three women answered in unison. Outside, Tate called again. Noe, come on, I already took your bedroom door off, don't make me start removing Susie's. Susie blinked. He is absolutely not touching my door. She raised her voice. Tate, go home. I can't. Why not? Because Noe is in there. The girls burst into laughter again as Noah slowly sank lower into the couch cushions. I was hoping tonight would be relaxing. It still is, Susie said with a grin, for us. Susie yanked the front door open and folded her arms. Tate, you're ruining our girls' sleepover. Tate blinked. I am. Yes, there's not supposed to be a man in sight, we're supposed to be talking about men, not hosting one. She shook her head dramatically. You're ruining the aesthetics. The girls behind her nodded, in exaggerated agreement. Right now, Susie continued, pointing toward the sidewalk, get out, go home, sleep in your own bed like a 26-year-old man is supposed to. I'll be quiet, Tate promised. Before Susie could stop him, he slipped gently past her into the house. Hey. Tate ignored her, looking around the living room. Where is the cunt? He asked matter-of-factly. He's run away from me 3 times this month already. When I get my hands on him, he's going to wish he'd unlocked the door. Noah, hidden somewhere in the house, muttered under his breath. I'm beginning to doubt that. Tate stood perfectly still. Then he sniffed the air. The room fell silent. Bree looked at Anna. Did he just sniff the air? Anna whispered back, I think he did. Tate sniffed again, turning his head slowly. I can smell his cologne. Noah squeezed his eyes shut. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Tate pointed toward the hallway. It's coming from... He took another dramatic sniff. The closet. No, it isn't, Noah called weakly. It absolutely is. Tate strode down the hallway and pulled open the closet doors. Behind a row of jackets belonging to Susie and Anna stood Noah, attempting to make himself as invisible as possible. The two of them stared at each other. A slow grin spread across Tate's face. Noah sighed. I really thought that would work. So did we, Bree admitted from the living room. Tate reached through the hanging coats, took Noah gently by the wrist and coaxed him out of the closet. Time to go. No. Yes. I live here now. No, you don't. I've already lost 90 minutes of sleep because of your theatrics, Tate complained as he guided Noah toward the front door. Come on. Noah dug his heels into the carpet in exaggerated protest. I've been adopted by Susie. No, you haven't, Noe. She likes me better. I heard that, Susie called, and I do, she added. Tate rolled his eyes. Traitor. As Noah shuffled reluctantly toward the door, Tate gave him a light, playful swat on the backside. Home. Noah looked over his shoulder at the 3 women. I'll miss you. We'll tell everyone you fought bravely, Anna said. And lost to a bloodhound, Bree added. The girls burst into laughter as Tate ushered the still grumbling Noah out the front door and into the night. Tate drove Noah back to the Rambler in complete silence, his hands fixed firmly on the steering wheel. Every so often he shot Noah another pointed glare. Noah stared out the passenger side window, wisely choosing not to comment. The moment they got home, Noah slipped out of the car and hurried inside. I'm going to the guest room, he called. Oh no, you're not. Before Noah could disappear down the hallway, Tate caught up to him, gently taking hold of his wrist and turning him back toward the master bedroom. Noah sighed dramatically. Tate. You run from me one more time, Tate warned, pulling him down the hall, and we're going to have a problem. I just wanted some peace and quiet. I just want sleep. Tate stopped outside the bedroom door and looked at him with exhausted frustration. I went and had a sleep study done on the condition that you wouldn't hide from me anymore, and you're still hiding. Noah looked sheepish. I climbed out a window. I noticed. And then I hid in Susie's closet. I also noticed. Tate pinched the bridge of his nose. Please don't make me go to extra lengths just to get a good night's sleep. I wasn't trying to keep you awake. I know, Tate replied, but somehow that's exactly what keeps happening. He guided Noah into the bedroom. No more guest room. Noah opened his mouth to protest. No. I haven't said anything yet. I know what you're going to say. You don't. You're going to tell me you'd be more comfortable in the guest room. Maybe. Tate gave him a tired look. Not tonight. He gently nudged Noah backward until he sat on the edge of the bed. There. Tate climbed onto the mattress beside him and pointed firmly toward the pillows. Lie down. Noah couldn't help smiling. You're awfully bossy when you're tired. I'm always bossy. Fair point. Noah lay back with an exaggerated sigh. They're happy. Not yet. Tate settled beside him, pulling the blanket over them both. I can't relax until I know you're settled. Noah looked over at him. You know that's a little ridiculous. I've had a ridiculous evening. A quiet laugh escaped Noah. That was partly your fault. Mostly your fault. I disagree. I know. The room finally grew quiet. After a long moment, Tate spoke again, his voice much softer than before. For once, just close your eyes and try to sleep. Noah smiled faintly. Okay. Within minutes, the constant bickering gave way to comfortable silence as both of them settled in for the night, the long, chaotic evening finally coming to an end. The following afternoon, Tate met Chloe at one of the city's newest upscale Italian restaurants. Warm lighting reflected off polished marble floors, waiters in crisp white jackets glided silently between tables, and the aroma of garlic, fresh herbs, and wood-fired bread drifted through the dining room. Once seated, they ordered generously. To start, they shared a burrata with heirloom tomatoes and basil, beef carpaccio with shaved parmesan, calamari, and a basket of warm rosemary focaccia served with olive oil and aged balsamic vinegar. For their entrees, Chloe chose a lobster ravioli in a saffron cream sauce, while Tate ordered a slow-braised osso buco over saffron risotto. They added a side of roasted asparagus, garlic broccolini, truffle parmesan fries, and wild mushrooms sautéed in butter and thyme to share. A bottle of sparkling water sat between them as they admired the elegant dining room. Chloe smiled, unfolding the linen napkin into her lap. I'm so glad we decided to try this place. I've heard it only opened last month and I've been dying to get a table. She glanced around at the bustling restaurant. I heard there's a 4-month wait just to get in the door. How did you manage this? Tate smiled faintly. I have a few connections. Chloe laughed. I noticed. I knew one of the managing partners from a business deal I worked on when I was 23. He owed you a favor. He did. And he cashed it in by getting you one of the hardest reservations in the city. Tate nodded. The rest is history. He looked around the restaurant before adding with a small grin. Or, in this case, the rest is us sitting at this table. Chloe laughed softly. I have to admit I'm impressed. I don't usually call in favors. So why this one? Tate shrugged. You said you wanted to come here. That's it. That seemed like a good enough reason. Chloe smiled warmly. You're full of surprises. I prefer efficient. Their appetizers arrived just then, filling the table with colorful plates and the scent of fresh basil, roasted garlic, and warm bread. Chloe picked up a piece of focaccia and looked at the spread in front of them. If the rest of the meal is this good, she said, I may never want to leave. Tate chuckled as he reached for the olive oil. Then we'd better save room for dessert. What are you thinking? The tiramisu. I was hoping you'd say that. And maybe the pistachio gelato. Chloe grinned. Now you're speaking my language. Tate smiled. I had a feeling I would be. Chloe had nearly finished her tiramisu when she set her fork down and looked across the table. Tate, I want to talk about something. The change in her tone made him immediately sit a little straighter. Okay. She gave him a reassuring smile. Don't misunderstand me, I don't want you to think I'm accusing you of anything. Tate's shoulders relaxed slightly. Then what is it? Chloe folded her hands together. I've been talking with some of my girlfriends and I have a few concerns about our relationship. Tate stiffened. Chloe noticed immediately. Hey, she said gently, I'm not attacking you. He nodded, waiting. I don't understand your relationship with Noah. Tate looked down briefly. I figured that might come up eventually. I know he's been in your life since you were 4 years old, Chloe continued. I know you've been inseparable for 22 years. I know he's family to you in a way that most people will never understand. She paused. But I've known a lot of guys. My brothers have close friendships from UCLA and from college. I've seen men who are incredibly close with their friends. She looked directly at him. I've just never seen two men have the kind of sleeping arrangement you and Noah have, or live together the way you do, or rely on each other the way you do. Tate stayed quiet. I'm not accusing you of anything, Chloe said quickly. I'm genuinely trying to understand. I want to know that we're on the same page and that I don't have anything to worry about. She took a breath. When I was 19, I dated someone in college. He had a male friend he was extremely close with. They shared a lot of space together and I thought it was just friendship. Her expression grew more serious. Eventually, I found out my boyfriend was gay and I was his beard. Tate's face softened. Chloe. I know that's not fair to put on you, she said. I know one experience doesn't define another, but it made me cautious. She reached across the table, resting her hand near his. I just need to know that me being your girlfriend is because you want me to be, not because your friends, society, your family, or anyone else expects you to have a girlfriend. Her voice became quieter. If you really love Noah in that way, then be with him. Don't waste my time. Tate looked genuinely hurt. Chloe. I'm not saying that you do, she added quickly. I'm not saying you're lying to me. Some of my friends just wondered and I needed to ask you myself instead of letting those thoughts sit there. She held his gaze. Are you gay? For a moment Tate said nothing. The question hung between them, surrounded by the sounds of the restaurant, the clinking of glasses, quiet conversations, and the movement of servers passing by. Finally Tate spoke. No. His answer was calm but firm. No, Chloe, I'm not gay. She nodded slowly. Okay. I understand why you asked, Tate continued. I really do, but Noah and I have a relationship that doesn't fit into a simple category. Chloe listened carefully. He's my family, he's been there through everything, my childhood, my worst moments, my best moments. When I sleep next to him, it isn't about sex, it's about safety, it's about knowing there's someone there who understands me. He paused. I know that probably sounds strange to a lot of people. It does, Chloe admitted softly. Tate gave a small sad smile. I know. And Noah. What about him? Do you love him? Tate didn't hesitate. Yes. Chloe's expression shifted. But not the way you're asking. He shook his head. I love Noah like someone loves the person who saved them, the person who knows every scar you have and doesn't run away. He looked down at his plate. But I also feel differently about you, Chloe. Chloe was quiet. I don't want to be someone's cover story, she said. You aren't. I need to believe that. You should, Tate replied, because if I didn't want to be with you, I wouldn't be sitting here. Chloe studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Thank you for answering me. Tate reached for his water. Thank you for asking me instead of assuming. A small smile returned to her face. Although... What? I still think your sleeping arrangement is unusual. Tate laughed softly. It is. And your relationship with Noah is complicated. Very. And I'm probably going to have a lot more questions. I figured. Chloe picked up her fork again. Good. Good. Yes, because I don't want a perfect relationship, I want an honest one. Tate smiled faintly. That I can do. Tate sat quietly for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Noah is straight, he said finally, very straight. Chloe watched him. He has told me at least 50 times since we were teenagers that he only likes girls. A small smile tugged at her mouth. 50 times. Probably more. Tate shook his head. He has never been confused about that, not once. He leaned back slightly in his chair. And just because I haven't dated someone since we met, or even before that, doesn't mean I'm gay. Chloe nodded, listening. The truth is, I just don't like romantic relationships the way most people seem to. Why? Tate looked down at the table. I don't like expectations, I don't like feeling like someone owns a piece of me, I don't like the pressure of having to become someone else's version of a partner. He paused. And I don't like families. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Families. The expectations that come with them, Tate clarified. The traditions, the roles, the idea that there's a certain path everyone is supposed to follow. His voice softened. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting those things. I know a lot of people find happiness in that. He looked at her. But I don't. Chloe stayed quiet. If you're hopping that I'm suddenly going to want marriage, a house, a traditional life, and all the things people usually expect because I found a beautiful woman. He shook his head. It won't happen. Tate. I told you from the beginning, he continued. I'm not good at emotional transparency. I'm not good at expressing things the way other people do. I'm not someone who wakes up one day and becomes a completely different person because I met the right person. He looked at her sincerely. And you are incredible, Chloe. You're smart, you're beautiful, you're confident, and honestly you're probably more than I deserve. She smiled faintly. But you can't fix me by being amazing. The words sat between them. I don't need a pretty girl or a glamorous goddess to suddenly make me capable of love. Chloe tilted her head. Do you think you're incapable of love? Tate was quiet for a moment. Yes, I'm incapable of healthy romantic love or genuine long-term sexual attraction. How does Noah figure into that if you're incapable of loving someone, Tate? I meant Noah, Tate clarified. Chloe watched him carefully as he continued. Before I realized how broken I was, he got over the wall. He paused, searching for the right words. Before those things became something that existed around my heart. Before I built all these defenses and decided that letting people too close was dangerous. He looked down at his hands. Noah was already there. Chloe stayed quiet. But I'm not secretly attracted to him, Tate said firmly, and I don't want anything beyond what I already have with him. He shook his head slightly. If I did, why would I have waited 22 years? Why would I spend all that time just circling a drain? That doesn't make any sense. He gave a small, humorless laugh. I've known him longer than I've known almost anyone, if that's what I wanted. Wouldn't I have figured it out by now? Chloe nodded slowly. I guess that's a fair question. Tate scratched his forehead, looking slightly uncomfortable with how much he was revealing. I'm not sitting at this table because I suddenly decided I need a girlfriend to prove something. He glanced around the restaurant. I'm not here because someone told me what my life is supposed to look like. A pause. I'm here because I'm curious. Curious? Yeah. Chloe smiled slightly. About me. Tate looked at her. About what other people say I should want. She raised an eyebrow. And I'm trying to understand why they care so much. Chloe laughed softly. Tate. What? Most people don't think that way. I know. Most people date because they want companionship, love, a future. I know. And you're sitting here analyzing the concept of wanting those things. Yes. She smiled. You are the strangest person I've ever met. Tate shrugged. Probably. But you're honest. Usually. Sometimes Noah says I'm honest in the most irritating way possible. Chloe laughed. I can believe that. Tate looked down at his plate for a moment. The thing is, Chloe, I don't want you to think I'm using you. I don't want you to think I'm pretending. I don't want you to think there's some secret explanation where everything suddenly makes sense. Chloe studied him. And what if there isn't? Tate looked at her. Then there isn't. She nodded. Maybe that's the part people have trouble understanding. What? That not everything needs a hidden reason. Tate was quiet. Chloe smiled gently. You love Noah, you're not in love with Noah, you're not trying to replace him, you're not trying to hide behind me. She paused. You're just Tate. For once, Tate didn't have a quick response. He simply nodded. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to understand. A small smile appeared on his face. That's probably going to take a while. Noah and I have had 22 years to figure each other out. There's no pretending, no performance, no expectations, he knows exactly who I am. And you think I don't? Not yet. Chloe nodded slowly. That's fair. Tate looked back at her. But I want you to understand something. I'm not with you because I'm trying to prove something. I'm not with you because people expect me to have a girlfriend. Why are you with me? Tate considered the question. Because I like being around you. A small smile appeared on her face. That's a very Tate answer. It's the honest one. Chloe picked up her fork again. I can work with honest. Tate smiled slightly. Good. But I'm still going to ask questions. I know. And I'm still going to challenge you. I know that too. Good. Tate looked amused. You seem strangely comfortable arguing with me. Chloe smiled. Someone has to. Tate sat quietly for a moment before finally speaking. We've been dating since mid-January, he said, so that's about 4 months now. Chloe watched him carefully. I wanted to understand what the big deal is. The big deal. About me dating, about me having a girlfriend, about any of this. He looked down at his plate. I've been bullied and harassed every year since I was 15. His voice was calm, but there was a tiredness underneath it. The same questions over and over. Why aren't you dating, Tate? Why aren't you seeing someone? Why aren't you screwing some girl? Chloe stayed silent. Eventually, I started sleeping with girls, he admitted. But honestly, I still don't understand what everyone was so obsessed with. He looked back up at her. Why is it such a big deal that someone has a partner? He shrugged slightly. Everyone acts like having a couple means something important, like it proves something. A small smile crossed his face. These 4 months have been nice. Chloe smiled softly. Nice. Yeah. He looked almost surprised by his own answer. It's like trying something new. Chloe studied him. And how's the experiment going? Tate glanced down at his dinner plate. The question seemed to stop him. His fork moved around the food, but he wasn't eating. It was obvious he had something to say and didn't know how to say it. Chloe noticed. Take your time. He looked up. What? She smiled. I have oodles of time. That made him laugh quietly. I'm still young, she added. I'm not in a rush. Tate smiled at that, but the expression faded. He looked back down. A long silence passed. Then finally, quietly, he said, I think we should break up. Chloe's expression changed. Not anger. Not shock. Just confusion. Why? Tate swallowed. Because I think you deserve someone who can give you what you're looking for. And what do you think I'm looking for? He hesitated. A future. Chloe tilted her head. Tate looked down at his plate, his expression unusually serious. If we got married, he began slowly, I would probably be emotionally distant. Chloe didn't interrupt. I'd be cold, maybe even frigid. He swallowed. I don't want to have sex with someone I love. The honesty of the statement hung between them. I know that sounds terrible, Tate continued, but I don't want to lie to you and pretend I'm something I'm not. Chloe watched him carefully. I am not good at emotional closeness. I'm not good at needing people. I'm not good at letting someone see everything inside my head. He shook his head. And I don't think I can just wake up one day and become that person. Tate. No, listen. His voice wasn't angry, it was almost pleading. If I married you because I thought you would somehow change me, that wouldn't be fair to either of us. He looked at her. I would neglect you emotionally. Chloe's expression softened, but she stayed quiet. I would give you everything I could give you, money, a beautiful home, security, social position, protection, anything practical you needed. He paused. But I don't know how to give someone the things that actually matter in a relationship. His fingers tightened slightly around his fork. I don't know how to be the person who comes home and talks about their feelings. I don't know how to be vulnerable just because someone loves me. He gave a small, humorless laugh. The frog doesn't turn into a prince when you kiss it. Chloe looked at him. Tate, I'm telling you the truth. I know. I don't want you to fall in love with some imaginary version of me, the version where eventually I become warm and open and everything you hoped for. He shook his head. That person doesn't exist. A quiet moment passed. I'm incapable of emotional transparency and vulnerability. Chloe studied him. And the last thing I want, Tate said softly, is to build a life with somebody I love and spend the entire time disappointing them. Tate sat quietly for a long time, staring at the table between them. Then he finally spoke. I don't want a fiancé. Chloe looked at him. I like my life the way it is. His voice was steady, but there was a heaviness behind it. I know it's unconventional, I know people don't understand it. I'm used to being called things, slurs, names, and if they're not true, they can't hurt me. He gave a small shrug. I've learned how to live with people misunderstanding me. Chloe opened her mouth to respond, but Tate continued. And I know someone like you will probably never understand what I'm talking about when it comes to my problems. His expression softened slightly. And that's not your fault. He looked down. That's mine. The restaurant continued around them, full of conversations and laughter, but their table felt strangely quiet. I would be the worst thing that could ever happen to you, Chloe. Her face tightened. Tate. No, listen. His eyes met hers. If we had children together, that would be a mistake. She stared at him. I mean it. He shook his head. I'm the most fucked up person in California. Chloe frowned. Don't say that. It's how I feel. He took a breath. And I'm going to tell you what I told Noah. His voice lowered. Don't go looking for answers in me. A pause. Don't go looking for the perfect partner. Don't go looking for someone who's suddenly going to become everything you need. He swallowed. I'm not capable of being the husband someone like you deserves. Chloe looked hurt. The last thing you need is Tate Blue in your life. The words sounded rehearsed, like something he had told himself many times before. I think we should stop seeing each other. Chloe went still. Tate continued before she could answer. You can come up with whatever solution or story you want. Just text me what it is so we can align our stories. She stared at him. Align our stories. So, people don't have to ask questions. Tate. It's easier. No, she said quietly, it's easier for you. He looked away. For a moment he had no response. Then he said, it's not a good thing for you to get attached to me. His voice cracked slightly, almost too subtle to notice. I told Noah the same thing. He looked back at her. Loving me is a losing game. Chloe's expression softened. Tate. Whatever I'm supposed to do to be a good man, I do the opposite. He stood up. You don't deserve a guy like me. Tate, sit down. But he was already reaching into his wallet. He placed several bills on the table. The gesture was polite, controlled, final. Thank you for dinner. Chloe looked up at him stunned. Tate. He hesitated. For one brief second, it looked like he might stay. Like he might finally let someone argue with him. But the walls went back up. He gave her a small nod. Then he walked away. Chloe remained at the table, surrounded by the remains of their meal, the empty dessert plate, the untouched glasses, the evidence of a night that had started with possibility and ended with him running from it. She watched him disappear through the restaurant doors. And for the first time, she wondered if Tate truly believed he was protecting people from himself. Or if he was simply terrified that someone might choose to stay. Chloe arrived home later that evening, her mind still replaying every word Tate had said. She had barely closed the front door behind her when she heard voices from the living room. There she is. Bree looked up from the couch with a grin. Well. Anna immediately leaned forward, already smiling. Did he propose? The girls started giggling. Chloe stopped in the doorway. For a moment she almost laughed. Almost. Then she shook her head. We broke up. The room went quiet. The giggling disappeared. What? Bree said. Anna blinked. Wait, what? We broke up, Chloe repeated. One of them tilted her head. What story did he get? Chloe looked confused. What do you mean? Anna sighed. The Tate Blue story. Bree nodded. The one where he decides he's secretly a disaster and that the only logical solution is to remove himself from someone's life before they get the chance to tell him he's wrong. Chloe stared at them. How did you know? The girls exchanged a look. Because we've met him, Bree said. Chloe dropped her purse onto the chair and sat down. He told me he wasn't good enough for me. Neither girl looked surprised. He said I deserved better. Anna leaned back. Of course he did. Chloe frowned. Why are you saying it like you expected that? Because Tate has this incredible talent, Bree said, for being kind, loyal, protective, and completely convinced that he's somehow the villain in everyone's story. Chloe was quiet. He said he would be emotionally distant, that he'd hurt me, that I shouldn't get attached to him. Anna shook her head. That sounds exactly like him. He said he was incapable of being the husband someone like me needed. Bree rolled her eyes slightly. Did he also tell you that you're too good for him? Chloe looked up. Yes. Called it. Anna laughed softly. It's like he has a script. Chloe looked down at her hands. He was so serious. The girl's expression softened. That's the hard part, Anna said. He actually believes it. Chloe nodded. He told me loving him is a losing game. Bree's smile faded. That's a very Tate thing to say. What does that even mean? It means he thinks if someone loves him, eventually they're going to discover something terrible and leave. Chloe looked toward the floor. He kept saying he was protecting me. Of course he did. Why? Anna shrugged. Because admitting he wants someone is scarier for him than losing them. Chloe was silent for a long moment. I don't think he understands that I wasn't asking him to become someone else. Bree nodded. That's probably exactly the problem. What do you mean? Tate hears I love you and translates it as change everything about yourself. Anna added he doesn't seem to understand that some people just want him as he is. Chloe sighed. I told him I wasn't asking for a perfect person. And he didn't believe me. The room went quiet. Bree picked up a pillow and hugged it. I actually feel a little bad for him. Chloe looked surprised. You do? Yes, annoyingly. Anna smiled. Tate is exhausting, but he's not cruel. No, Chloe said softly, he's not. He walked away because he thought staying would hurt you. Chloe shook her head. But he didn't ask me what I wanted. Bree nodded. That's the Tate problem. The Tate problem. He makes decisions for everyone because he thinks he knows what's best. Chloe leaned back on the couch. I don't know if I should be angry or sad. Both are valid, Anna said. Chloe looked at her. He said I could come up with any story I wanted so we could align our stories. Bree groaned. Of course he did. What? He doesn't even want to be the bad guy alone. Anna laughed quietly. That's almost impressive. Chloe smiled despite herself. He is the strangest person I've ever met. Welcome to knowing Tate. The girls sat quietly for a moment. Then Bree looked at Chloe. Do you still like him? Chloe didn't answer immediately. Finally she nodded. Yes, I think I'm in love with him. Anna sighed. That is unfortunate. Chloe laughed softly. I know. Because he's going to make this difficult. I know. And because he probably thinks breaking up was some noble sacrifice. Chloe looked toward the window. Yes. Bree smiled. Well. What? You've been dating him for 4 months, you already know he doesn't give up easily. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Actually, he gives up very easily. No, Anna corrected, he runs away very easily. Bree nodded. Different thing. Chloe looked down at her phone. The last message from Tate was still waiting. She didn't open it. Not yet. But she knew one thing. For someone who claimed he didn't want anyone attached to him, Tate Blue had a strange habit of leaving people with reasons to come back. Anna looked out the window at the fading sunlight. I mean, it's May 21st, she said. It's a beautiful day, it's still sunny outside, maybe it's 8 o'clock in the evening, but it's lovely. She turned back toward Chloe. Go fight for him. Chloe blinked. What? Show up at his house, tell him he's wrong, demand better. Bree nodded in agreement from the other side of the room. She has a point. Anna continued, completely serious. Are you really going to let a guy that beautiful and interesting just walk away because he decided he's too broken for you? Chloe looked down at her hands. I don't know what to do. Because you care about him. Yes. And because he makes everything complicated. Also yes. Bree laughed quietly. That's basically Tate's entire personality. Chloe sighed. I'm saving myself for marriage, you know. Anna's expression softened immediately. I know. I mean it. I know you do. Chloe looked at her. I'm not changing something that's important to me just because I'm afraid someone will leave. Anna nodded. And you shouldn't. She paused. But maybe that isn't what will make Tate love you. Chloe frowned. What do you mean? Anna leaned back. Tate doesn't seem like someone who needs to be convinced with a checklist. He doesn't need someone to prove they're perfect. She glanced toward Chloe. He needs someone who can show him something he doesn't understand. What's that? Vulnerability. The room became quiet. He knows how to protect people, he knows how to provide, he knows how to solve problems, he knows how to take care of everyone else. Anna shook her head. But he has no idea what to do when someone chooses him anyway. Bree nodded. That's probably what scares him the most. Chloe looked thoughtful. He said he wasn't capable of emotional transparency. Then maybe he needs someone who shows him what it looks like, Anna said. I'm not trying to pressure you, she added quickly. You don't owe Tate anything you're not comfortable giving, your boundaries matter. Chloe nodded. But maybe waiting for him to magically feel secure isn't going to work. Anna looked toward the phone sitting beside Chloe. Someone like Tate isn't going to commit because people tell him he should. He has to understand what he's choosing. Bree smiled faintly. And he has to believe someone actually knows him. Chloe was quiet. He thinks he's protecting me. Yes. He thinks leaving is the kind thing to do. Yes. And he thinks he's not enough. Anna nodded. Exactly. Chloe looked toward the window, watching the last bit of sunlight stretch across the room. I don't want to chase someone who doesn't want me. Anna smiled gently. Then don't chase him. Chloe looked confused. Tell him the truth. A pause. Tell him what you want, tell him what you're willing to give, tell him what you're not willing to give. Bree nodded. And then let him make his own choice. Chloe picked up her phone but didn't unlock it. I don't know if he'll listen. Anna smiled. Neither do we. That isn't very reassuring. No, Anna admitted, but it is honest. She shrugged. It's Tate, nothing about him is easy. Chloe laughed softly despite herself. You're both terrible friends. Maybe, Bree said, but we're right. Chloe looked down at her phone again. For the first time since Tate walked out of the restaurant, she wasn't thinking about how to convince him he was wrong. She was thinking about how to tell him she saw him clearly. And that despite everything he believed about himself, she was still there. Bree nodded firmly. Go to his house. Chloe looked up. Bree. No, listen to me. Bree leaned forward. Tell him you love him, tell him what you're actually offering. Stop letting him make the decision for both of you because he's afraid. Anna nodded. Exactly. Bree continued. I mean, Chloe, look at you. You're beautiful, intelligent, kind, and you have your entire life ahead of you. You could meet plenty of guys who would be thrilled to be with you. She shrugged. If Tate doesn't want what you're offering, then that's his loss. Chloe sighed. That sounds easier than it is. Of course it is, Bree said. Anything involving Tate is harder than it needs to be. Anna laughed. That should be printed on a warning label. Bree smiled. But don't let him get away just because you're too afraid to fight for something you actually want. Chloe looked down. I don't want to force him. Nobody said force him, Bree replied. There's a difference between fighting for someone and chasing someone. She paused. You tell him the truth, then he gets to decide. Chloe was quiet. Bree leaned back. You know, poor Talia probably went through something similar with Terrence. Chloe smiled slightly. Did she ever tell you how she got him? Bree grinned. She showed up at his hotel room, completely confident in what she wanted, and made it very clear she wasn't going to sit around waiting for him to figure everything out. Terrence opened the door and Talia was standing there wearing a red negligee. She pushed him backward onto the bed and fucked him senseless several times actually. She convinced him that he was a fool for letting her get away. Anna laughed. That sounds like Talia. Exactly, Bree said, and look at them, 30 years later they're still together. Chloe shook her head. You're comparing me telling Tate how I feel to Talia and Terrence. I'm comparing courage, Bree corrected. She pointed gently at Chloe. Talia knew what she wanted, Terrence knew what he wanted, neither of them got there by pretending they didn't care. Anna nodded. Tate's biggest problem is that he thinks caring makes him weak. Chloe looked thoughtful. And you think I should show him that it doesn't? Yes. Bree smiled. Get with the program, girls. Chloe laughed. You two are impossible. Maybe, Anna said, but we're also sitting here watching you talk yourself out of something because a man convinced himself he isn't worth loving. Bree stood up and handed Chloe her phone. At least call him. Chloe looked at the screen. Right now. Yes. I'm not sure. Of course you're not sure. Bree smiled. That's why we're here. Chloe looked between her friends. What if he doesn't want me? Anna answered softly. Then you'll know. A pause. But don't let fear make the choice before he does. Chloe looked back at her phone. For the first time that evening, the idea of reaching out to Tate didn't feel like begging him to stay. It felt like giving him the chance to finally hear the truth. The call had caught Tate completely off guard. His phone had lit up with Chloe's name and for several seconds he had simply stared at it, debating whether answering was a mistake. They weren't together anymore. That was what he had told himself. That was what he had decided. But when he finally answered and heard her voice, he knew immediately that she wasn't calling to exchange polite goodbyes. I need to talk to you, Chloe had said. Tate had gone quiet. Chloe. Please. There had been something in her voice that made him stop arguing. So he drove. Not to a restaurant, not to his house, not anywhere crowded where someone might interrupt them. He drove out to a quiet overlook, isolated location away from the city, somewhere they could talk without an audience. The night was calm, the sky still holding onto the last traces of evening. The two of them sat in his car, the windows cracked slightly as cool air moved through the vehicle. For a while neither of them spoke. Then Chloe looked over at him. You're not supposed to be driving. Tate turned his head. What? She smiled. You know exactly what I mean. He stared at her. You are concerned about that right now. She laughed softly. Yes, because if you get caught, you're going to get in trouble. A small smile appeared on Tate's face. Chloe peeled her shirt off first, the fabric sliding over her head and dropping to the passenger seat. Her pants followed, pushed down her legs until she kicked them free. She climbed across the console, settling onto Tate's lap in nothing but the black expensive bra and matching panties. The lace clung to her curves, expensive and delicate against her skin. Tate stayed emotionally distant, leaning back against the driver's seat, his hands resting at his sides as he looked up at her. The car sat parked in the isolated spot, trees blocking any view from the road. You like isolated locations, huh? Chloe said with a smile. Her fingers worked the buckle on his pants, popping it open and tugging the zipper down. We can stop at any time, okay? I don't care about going all the way if you don't want to. She leaned in, French kissing him while straddling his lap. Her tongue slid against his as she moaned into his mouth. Tate and Chloe have sex for the first time in his car. Chloe loses her virginity to Tate. I want you to know how much I care, Chloe whispered against his lips. I'm in love with you, and if there's even a hint that maybe you're running away because you're afraid and not because you don't want this, I'll fight for that. Whatever and however small that hesitation is, I'll pursue it. She waited, watching his face. Tate didn't say no. His eyes stayed on hers, clear and wanting. Scene retracted, read extended version on Wattpad. Chloe slowly came down from the overwhelming emotions of the night, still wrapped in Tate's arms, sitting on his lap. For a while neither of them spoke. She rested her head against his chest, listening to his breathing, feeling a kind of happiness she hadn't expected to find after their difficult conversation. A small smile crossed her face. That was the best first time I could have imagined. She looked up at him and kissed him softly. I love you. Tate went still. Not because he didn't hear her. Because he did. Chloe searched his face. And if there's even a little bit of your heart that loves me. Her voice became quieter. Tell me. For a moment Tate didn't move. Then he turned his face away. The gesture was small, but Chloe noticed. She couldn't see his expression anymore. She couldn't tell if he was overwhelmed, scared, sad, or trying to hide something. Tate. Silence. Finally his voice came out low. I need time. Chloe's expression fell slightly. Time. He nodded. I need to think about this. The sadness in his voice surprised her. It wasn't rejection, it wasn't anger. It sounded like someone standing at the edge of something enormous and not knowing whether he was brave enough to step forward. How much time? A few days. Chloe looked at him carefully. You really need to think about whether you love me. Tate closed his eyes briefly. I need to think about what that means. She was quiet. Because she understood. For most people, saying I love you was an emotional response. For Tate, it was a life-altering decision. A commitment. A vulnerability. Something that could be used against him. He looked back at her. I don't want to say something just because it's what you want to hear. Chloe nodded slowly. I don't want that either. Good. But I also don't want you to run away because you're scared. Tate looked down. I know. The honesty of that answer surprised her. After a moment he reached for his keys. I'll drive you home. Chloe studied him. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him not to leave, not to retreat back behind the walls he had built. But she also knew this was Tate. If she forced him, he would only feel trapped. So she nodded. Okay. The drive back was quiet. Not an angry silence. Not an uncomfortable one. Just two people sitting with something too big to put into words. When they arrived, Tate kept his hands on the steering wheel for a moment. Chloe. She looked over. I meant what I said. Which part? That I need time. She nodded. I know. And... He hesitated. The hesitation alone told her how difficult the next words were. Thank you. Chloe smiled faintly. For what? For not making me pretend. She reached over and squeezed his hand. I don't need you to pretend, Tate. He looked at her. I just need you to be honest. He nodded. And even though he didn't say the words she desperately wanted to hear, Chloe saw something she hadn't seen before. Fear. Not fear of her. Fear of how much she mattered. She got out of the car and closed the door gently. Tate stayed there for a while after she walked inside. Because for the first time in his life, the thing he was most afraid of losing was something he had actually let himself want. Noah was sitting at the dining room table, quietly enjoying a mug of sleepy time tea while reading the newspaper. The house was peaceful. Almost suspiciously peaceful. Then the front door opened. Noah looked up. Tate walked in. Immediately, Noah noticed something was different. Tate's clothes looked slightly disheveled, his hair was sticking up in every direction, and he had the unmistakable expression of someone who had just gone through something he wasn't emotionally prepared to process. Noah slowly lowered the newspaper. A grin spread across his face. Somebody got laid. Tate stopped. For a second he looked offended. Then he looked too tired to argue. You're insufferable. Noah laughed. I didn't even say anything. You didn't have to. Tate walked past him and dropped onto the couch. Noah watched him carefully. Usually Tate had something to say, a sarcastic comment, a complaint, a dramatic explanation about why everyone else was wrong. But this time, nothing. He just sat there. Noah picked his newspaper back up. The room stayed quiet. Minutes passed. Tate stared at the ceiling. Noah pretended not to notice. Finally, when Noah turned the page, Tate spoke. I fucked Chloe. The words came out flatly. Not excited. Not boastful. Not like someone bragging. Just a statement of fact. A sentence that described what happened, not how he felt about it. Noah slowly lowered the newspaper again. He studied Tate's face. Okay. Tate looked over. That's all you're going to say. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Noah folded the newspaper. I figured if you were telling me, you probably didn't want a dramatic reaction. Tate looked away. No. A pause. I don't. Noah leaned back in his chair. So, how do you feel? Tate didn't answer. That was answer enough. Noah's expression softened. Tate. I don't know. The admission was quiet. Noah had known Tate for 22 years. He knew exactly how rare those 3 words were. I don't know how I feel. Noah set the newspaper aside. That's new. Don't make fun of me. I'm not. You sound like you're going to. I always sound like I'm going to. That got a small, reluctant smile from Tate. Then it disappeared. I told her everything. Noah raised an eyebrow. Everything. Everything. The walls, the emotional issues, the whole I'm impossible to love speech. Tate frowned. How did you know? Noah gave him a look. Because I've heard it for years. Tate sighed. I told her she deserved better. And she disagreed. Noah smiled slightly. Of course she did. Tate leaned forward, elbows on his knees. She said she loves me. The room went quiet. Noah didn't tease him. Didn't make a joke. He just watched his best friend struggle with words that should have been simple. And what did you say? Tate looked down. I told her I needed time. Noah nodded slowly. That's probably the most honest answer you've ever given someone. Tate sniffled quietly and shifted farther back into the couch, his exhaustion finally catching up with him. Noah noticed. He didn't comment on it. Tate wasn't someone who liked being noticed when he was vulnerable. I broke up with her before we did anything, Tate said. His voice was flat, almost detached. She wanted to talk to me, so we drove out to her private place. We sat there and talked. Noah listened carefully. And she told me she was in love with me. Tate said it like he was reading a line from a newspaper. No emotion. No excitement. No fear. Just a fact. Noah's stomach tightened. Because he knew Tate. He knew what was underneath the calm voice. He knew that when Tate sounded the most unaffected, it usually meant he was overwhelmed and trying desperately to keep control. And then Noah asked. Tate looked down at his hands. And then I didn't know what to say. Noah was quiet. She wanted me to admit that I loved her too. A pause. She thinks maybe I do, and I'm just afraid to say it. Noah looked away. Because suddenly the thing he had always worried about was sitting right in front of him. Not Chloe specifically. Not even marriage. The future. Ever since they were kids, Noah had known there would eventually be someone who saw Tate differently. Someone who didn't just see the difficult parts. Someone who saw the person underneath. Someone who wanted the things Tate had spent his whole life avoiding. A home. A family. A life that belonged to 2 people instead of just Tate and Noah. And Noah hated the small, selfish part of himself that felt afraid. Because he loved Tate. Not in the way Chloe feared. Not romantically. But deeply. 22 years of friendship, of surviving things together, of knowing each other's habits, fears, and flaws. Tate wasn't just his best friend. He was home. And Noah had always known that one day someone might come along and change everything. Someone would ask Tate for more. Someone would become his priority. And Noah would be left behind. The thought hurt more than he wanted to admit. You okay? Tate asked suddenly. Noah looked up. Yeah. Tate narrowed his eyes. You hesitated. No, I didn't. You did. Noah sighed. You're impossible. That's not an answer. Noah looked down at his tea. For a moment he considered lying. But Tate had always hated dishonesty. So he said the truth. I'm just thinking. About what? Noah was quiet. Then, that eventually someone was going to come along. Tate frowned. What? Someone who wanted more from you. The words were softer than Noah intended. Marriage, a family, a life. Tate stared at him. Noah. I knew it would happen eventually. Tate's expression changed. Not anger. Something closer to confusion. Did you think I would just disappear? Noah didn't answer. That was answer enough. Tate leaned forward. Noah. I'm not saying it's her fault. I know. I'm not saying you shouldn't be happy. I know. I'm just. He stopped. Because admitting it out loud felt childish. Tate waited. Finally Noah said quietly. I don't want to lose you. The room went still. Tate looked at him for a long moment. Then his expression softened. Noah. I'm not trying to be selfish. I know. I know people grow up, I know things change. Tate nodded. But. Noah looked at him. But you're Tate. A faint smile touched Tate's face. That explains nothing. It explains everything. Noah shook his head. You don't understand how rare you are. Tate looked uncomfortable. I don't need a speech. I'm not giving you a speech. You are absolutely giving me a speech. Noah smiled faintly. Maybe. For a moment the heaviness lifted. Then Tate looked back down. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Noah studied him. Maybe for once don't decide based on what you think everyone else needs. Tate looked up. What does that mean? It means stop assuming you're going to ruin everything. A pause. Ask yourself what you want. Tate was quiet. Because that was the question he had been avoiding. Not whether Chloe loved him. Not whether he could provide for her. Not whether he would disappoint her. What did he actually want? And for someone like Tate, that was the scariest question of all. I think I'll take a week, Tate said. Noah looked up. A week? Yeah. Tate stared at the floor. I'll give her an answer on June 1st. His voice was quiet. I don't know how I feel. He paused. And I don't think it really matters. Noah frowned. What does that mean? Tate didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and walked into the kitchen. Noah watched him go. Tate opened the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of guava juice, and poured himself a glass. The ordinary motion seemed strange considering the weight of the conversation. He took a sip, then leaned back against the kitchen counter. If I say I love her. He stopped. Noah waited. Tate looked around the room. Then he gestured around him. If I say I love her, I'll lose all of this. Noah's expression softened. All of what? Tate motioned with his hand. This. The house. The space. The life they had built. Our routines. He looked toward the living room. This house. A pause. What we are. Noah swallowed. Because there it was. The fear he had been expecting. Not that Tate didn't care about Chloe. Not that Tate couldn't love her. But that loving someone else meant losing something he had spent his entire life protecting. Tate looked back at his drink. And if I don't? He shook his head. What am I going to lose out on with her? Noah stayed quiet. Because he knew Tate wasn't asking him for an answer. He was trying to understand the impossible choice.